Good evening. This is my top 10 list of wildcards, which I think are a mixture of competitive and fun, ordered from my least favourite to most favourite being number one. There are a few cards that I wanted to include, but I missed out because they're so difficult to define that I thought it wouldn't be worth mentioning. One of those cards was Dead Man's Hand, and another one was Eternal Servitude. But they're not on the list. So check out the top 10 and enjoy. Our first card on the list is a Death Knight, Uther of the Everblade. A card I think designed for the slower control or even the mid-range paladin. It gives you a 5/3 lifesteal weapon and 5 armor straight away, so you can instantly gain 10 HP from playing this card. And the hero power is the 4 horsemen, so it summons a 2/2 horseman, and if all 4 of them exist on board at the same time, it instantly kills your opponent. So there's a fun challenge and factor with this card in the late game. If you're up against the control deck, just try and get your 2/2 horseman to live, or find a way in Wild for you to play these all in one turn, which is possible. It is possible. There's a few ways you can actually do that, but I think it's a card that's going to definitely see play everywhere, Wild and Standard. Very, very powerful, and it's like it's kind of the equivalent of a Just the Car upgrade on the hero power. You're getting 2/2 worth of stats every turn, so definitely one that'll see play. Might not be the most fun, but it's a nice challenge trying to kill your opponent and with the horseman. I like legendary cards that produce other legendary cards. I really like Sneeds. I really like Confessor Paltress. Rothface is even more reliable in my opinion at getting random legendaries on board in Wild, because you got stuff like you got Death Spite. You got the new Garrosh Death Knight, which is like a whirlwind every turn. You can run Revenge as well in Wild, which is still a pretty damn good tool against aggro. So on a turn, like on turn 10, you play Rothface, you should be able to guarantee at least 2 legendary cards get pulled from this. And that's pretty damn good value, because legendaries are usually well statted and have an effect attached to them. So on turn 10, you're getting essentially it'll be a 4/4 because you got to damage it twice. So it'd be a 4/4. And then the 2 random legendaries. It's like they've got their own version of Confessor Paltress essentially. Same stats, similar stats, and similar kind of effect, where you're only going to be getting, with Paltress, you're only usually going to be getting 1 legendary minion out at the same time, and Rothface will be the same thing. You're going to play Rothface, and you're going to guarantee you get 1 other legendary out with it. And in that case, it's a 4/5, so very similar to Paltress. And I'm a sucker for that kind of thing. I love getting random legendaries from other legendaries. So it's a way for honorable mention. I'll definitely make a control warrior with this in it, with Dead Man's Hands at some point. Just try out a lot of like ridiculous stuff in Wild. And why not? The card's probably not going to be very competitive, but it's hella fun, and that's the entire point of playing a game online. All right, don't let anyone else tell you that it's not competitive and you shouldn't play this card. It's fucking fun. Just go with it. Lillian Voss, a card not really well received. It's the rogue legendary. Replace spells in the hand with random spells from the class that you're playing against. I can see getting played in sort of a Miracle Rogue. There's times in Miracle Rogue where you're left with cards that you can't play because you didn't get your gadgets on. Stuff like Coin, you don't particularly want to use Prep. You could have Fan as well against the control deck. You're not going to really use that unless you cycle in. Conceal in Wild as well. You put it in the 4-drop slot, replace one of the Tomb Pillagers there. It's well statted, and the effect I think in most situations is beneficial. In a case where you do have Lillian Voss in hand and you have something like Gadgetzan in hand, you just wait, then you play your Gadgetzan, and then you get rid of maybe a few spells that you don't particularly need. I don't think you'd use it when you are going for lethal and you need the likes of Sap, but I think there are definite situations where this is very playable in Miracle Rogue, and yeah, even in the likes of Burgle Rogue and stuff like that, it's more of a meme card in that case, but I think it's got some implications in Miracle. Play Dead. Play Dead. This card is so much better than Feign Death in Wild. Most cases, Feign Death only triggers on one minion. You have to wait most times as well, so you can do it on curve with the likes of Sylvanas and the likes of Sneeds and Highmane. Play Dead, much better, I think, than Feign Death. Play Dead just has so much synergy. I think the Death Rattle Hunter in Wild, at least, is gonna be crazy good. I'm just thinking of a Death Rattle Hunter now, where you'd run the Rexar Death Knight, you'd run Corpse Widower, you'd run the likes of Sneed, Sylvanas, 2 Mad Scientists. Pretty damn crazy deck. Can't wait to play it. And Play Dead, you definitely use Play Dead instead of Feign Death, because Feign Death usually just triggers on one target, and the 1 mana reduction is just so much better. The 4 mana 2/3 Battlecry, summon a copy of this minion. This I can see being used in Evolved Shaman with the Evolved Shaman Death Knight. Maybe in a few kind of buff decks, like buff Paladin. It's also got synergy with Bran in Wild, and it's costed effectively is the same as Shaman's Spirit Wolves, because obviously there's two Overload attached to that, and it costs 3 mana, where this is a 4 mana card and does the same thing essentially, but with more benefits and upsides, because both copies of this card are costed a 4 mana, so if you evolve it, it turns into a 5 mana card. And it's got synergy with Bran as well. Some buff cards as well, like Bufferdin, which I don't think is going to be a viable deck, but in the next expansion. But in the future it might be. And this card in Wild is definitely one to look out for. You can't buff it. You can only buff this in hand. You can't buff it on the table and have the copy take the buff, because it's a battle cry. It's not like Echo and Ooze where it's an end of turn effect. So it's you can only buff this in hand and then play it. But I think in Evolved Shaman and maybe a Bufferdin deck in the future, not this expansion, but I can see this definitely getting played. I'll definitely play this in Evolved Shaman without a doubt, because it curves into the Shaman Death Knight as well. Anduin Shadow Reaper, probably one of the best Death Knights in Wild. Reno Priest in Wild was probably the worst version of Reno. Reno Lock and Reno Mage, definitely better than the old Reno Priest, but with the inclusion of Shadow Reaper Anduin, I think this and a few other cards push Reno Priest above Reno Lock, and maybe even above Reno Mage. Because if you consider this card, it combines so many effects into one, which is amazing for a Reno deck, because you don't have to run some of the one-off cards. You don't have to run Shadow Form. You don't have to run maybe one of the big board clears. You gain 5 armor, so maybe you don't have to run like some health gain cards. And then you have extra synergies with some of the Inspire cards in Wild as well. Reno Priest will have this as an auto include every time, and I think it might push Reno Priest over the edge of some of the other Reno decks. Another one I mentioned before, this one to me seems really fun. I know people don't really like the evolve strategy because it's random and there's some big RNG swings in it, but it's crazy fun. Thrall Deathseer, I mean, come on. The battle cry is transform your minions to cost 2+ than what they are, and then the hero power is evolve a minion for 2 mana each time. Crazy value. It's like healing the minion and then rolling the dice on a better one each turn. So yeah, look out for this one. It combines with the Chain Gang, which I mentioned before. You still got the likes of Doppelgangster, which are really good with this card. So yeah, in Wild, is it any better in Wild than it would be in Standard? I don't know, actually.
Your history.
But I think it'll be played in both. And I really like Death Seer. Probably one of the more fun. That and Valera is one of the more fun Death Knights, I think, for the effect. Deal 5 damage, draw 5 cards, gain 5 armor, summon a 5/5 ghoul. It's, to me, when I saw this, I thought, oh, it's like, oh, Druid got a Kazakis potion, or Druid got a 2 Kazakis potions rolled into 1. Deal 5 damage is like a 5 mana Kazakis choose 1 effect, gain 5 armor. It's slightly less. Gain 7 is the 5 mana Kazakis effect. Summon a 5/5 demon is the Kazakis effect, and draw 3 cards. Draw 2 cards for 5 mana. So that's where the card differs in the armor gain and the card draw mechanic. Instantly in Wild, I thought, oh, Astral Communion. If you sometimes, you know, when you get that perfect Astral Communion turn 1, imagine top decking this as your next go-to card. Turn 2, play Ultimate Infestation, draw 5 cards, get a 5/5 on board. Game's over at that point. In Astral Communion Druid, in Wild, game's over already if you get that on turn 2. You know, I've played quite a bit of it. It can happen quite a lot of the times when I'm on stream. I'm playing multiple games. There's been times where I've had like 4 in a row turn 1 Astral Communions, so it's not completely, you know, out the ordinary for that to happen. The other like deck this would work in is like just a huge Ramp Druid. And in Wild, Ramp Druid's more scary because you've got Rag, Sylvanas, Dr. Boom. You got those hard like sticky minions that are, you know, pretty broken when you play them out like 2 turns or 3 turns ahead of what they should be played on. This card will help stabilize you as well in the big Ramp Druid games. You'd run 1 Nourish possibly, and one of these you wouldn't run 2 Nourish in that type of deck anymore. The one downside of Infestation is it's not as versatile as a Nourish is against you know, aggro or control. It completely depends on how the game's going and what you're playing against. Whereas this, if you draw this on turn 5, you probably think, fuck, I'm not gonna have a good time now for the next 4 or 5 turns until I can play this. So it could be dead a lot of the times in your hand against aggro and stuff like that. But, you know, Wild, Astral Communion Druid, a lot of fun. definitely 2 of include in that deck. Valera the Hollow. I'm a big fan of Wild. A big fan of, I don't know if you know this, but I'm a big fan of Wild Rogue. You know, I've got a few videos with me playing a Rogue deck in Wild. So the Death Knight Valera is going to be an instant include for me in that deck. I've already thought of a way to improve and streamline my control rogue, or, you know, the kind of meme rogue that I run. I've done a full video on Valera the Hollow and on a few of the Death Knights. I'm doing a few spotlights for them, so I advise you to check that out as a more in-depth like review of the card and what combos you can do. But this opens up. This is a new hero power mechanic. It costs 0 mana. It opens up a lot of combos in Wild and in Standard. It's one of the cards I'm most excited to play. Well, it's actually, tell a lie, it's the second most card I'm most excited to play. Does that make sense? Is that a real sentence? I don't know. Anyway, I kind of had to include Valera the Hollow on the list just because it's unique. There's a lot of combos you can do with it. It opens up a couple of play styles. You can play it in Miracle Rogue. You can play this in, well, it's going to be played in the Control Rogue that I've got. And in Wild, there's a lot more fun that can be had, especially with some cards like Bran and Shadowcaster. I don't know if you've seen them cards before. Corpse Widow, 5 mana, 4/6 beast, which is quite important as well. Your Death Rattle cards cost 2 less. Now just read that text. It says your Death Rattle cards. It doesn't say minions, it says cards. That includes Feign Death, Play Dead, as well as minions as well. So keep that in mind. That's how broken this card is. To me, this card is broken. There's no competition for the Hunter's 5-drop slot I'm trying to think of what gets played in the 5-drop slot in Hunter and Wild. Maybe low feb. There's not much in there. This is the perfect 5-drop for a Hunter. In that kind of mid-range Death Rattle deck. The one I play, though, it's not really mid-range. I run Dr. Boom and Sylvanas and Sneeds for a lot of fun. This card, if you play this on turn 5 and you have it live, the next turn you can do Sneeds, play dead. You can do Sneeds, feign death. On the same turn as playing this, you could play a Mad Scientist. You know, you could play like a 2-mana Death Rattle, no problem. So it's not a battle cry either. It's just a permanent effect as long as this stays on the board. So this card's pretty damn broken in my opinion. In Wild, at least. In Wild, this to me is broken. I think with some of the cards that have been released, like Deathstalker Rexar and Play Dead, and then some of the other Death Rattles that have come out, this card to me seems really good. So I'm really excited. That might be one of the first decks I play as Death Rattle Hunter. It just seems really well statted, and the effect seems insane. I've seen a lot of like top 10 videos and reviews, and everyone's praising the Lich King, calling it a fantastic card. It's worth an honorable mention in this video. In Wild, I just can't see this being that good. It's an 8-mana 8/8. I mean, it's got taunt, yeah. So, and it's got taunt. It's basically an Iron Bark protector or whatever. But it gives you a Death Rattle card. I know the Death Rattle cards are really good, but have you seen how situational the Death Knight cards are? They're so situational. It's like if you're a control, you're going to be playing this in a control deck. If you get the card that discards the top, discard the top 6 or 5 cards from your hand, and you're against another control deck, when are you ever going to do that? You're not going to use that card at all. And a lot of it's like with the Ysera cards. They're all playable and they're all useful. One of them is like a PoE. One of them is like a Power Overwhelming. You know, you've got Dream, which is like a sap. You've got 2 minions, which are really well statted and pretty damn good. And then you've got a board clear. Ysera cards are all usable by a control deck. You can use every single one of those cards and there's no problem using them. Whereas the Lich King, there's too many variations in the cards for it to be good. So I don't understand why everyone is saying this card is an auto-include in these decks. It's really not. I'd rather play the 4-mana dog, Arthas, whatever it's called. I think because at 4 mana and playing it early on in the game, if you do whiff and get a really bad like Death Knight card, you know, you don't really mind because you're not committing 8 mana into one card and completely destroying your turn. Whereas this is, would you play Iron Bark Protector in a control deck? No, you wouldn't. I don't think you'd play that card. I don't think you'd play the Lich King either. Not in Wild. It's an honourable mention, you know. You might experiment with it a little bit, but I think it's too... I think the Death Knight cards are too situational.